remembered my first dream. I brought my bunny to a place that they bred bunnies with other animals.
Wait a second. This is...
Should I start over?
Mm-hmm. What? This is your first dream this summer that you remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
I brought my bunny to a place where they bred other animals to other animals. And they told them to breed my bunny with a dog. So they're about to put the dog in, but a wolf carried the dog over, but the wolf jumped in. So when I came back and got my bunny when it was pregnant, it was fat and everything, but it was really fat. So much fatter than its whole body. And so I brought it home, and then 30 days later, I got cats. I was so surprised because I got cats out of, well, I thought it was a dog and a bunny, but it was a wolf and a bunny, and I got cats. It's kind of weird. So I gave away all the cats, and I brought the bunny back so they could breed again, and they bred again. And then, this time they bred it with a cat and they got wolves. It's really weird. But, so I couldn't give away the wolves, so I had to let them go in my backyard. That was kind of hard because they were too attached to my bunny. One of them almost ate my bunny. And I think that's how I remember.
Oh, well, it's a nice story. You know what I forgot to do?
What?
Turn the radio off. Ah, that's a typical Elizabeth look. Right here. Okay.
To recognize.
Wait. Okay.
How to recognize a witch. Illustrated by Quentin Blake and by Royal Dahl.
Okay.
The next evening after my...
What's the title called? Title of the chapter called?
I should how to recognize a witch.
Oh, a what?
A witch.
That's better. Okay.
The next evening after Grandmother had given me a bath, she took me once again into the living room for another story. Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one. Can you always be sure? I asked. No, she said, you can't, and that's the trouble, but you can make a pretty good guess. She was dropping cigar ash all over her lap, and I hoped she wasn't going to catch on fire before she told me how to recognize a witch. In the first place, she said a real witch is certain always to be wearing gloves when you meet her. Surely not always, I said, but What about in the summer when it's hot? Even in the summer, my grandmother said. She has too. Do you want to know why? Why, I asked. Because she doesn't have any fingernails. Instead of fingernails, she has curvy claws like a cat. She wears the gloves to hide them. Mind you, a lot of respectable women wear gloves, especially in winter, so this doesn't help you very much. Mama used to wear gloves, I said. Not in the house, my grandmother said. Witches wear gloves even in the house. They only take them off when they go to bed. How do you know all this, Grandma? Don't interrupt, she said. Just take it all in. The second thing to remember is that a real witch is always bald. Bald, I said. Bald as a boiled egg, my grandmother said. I was shocked. There was something ancient about the bald woman. Why are they bald, Grandma? Don't ask me why, she snapped. But you can take it from me that not a single hair grows on a witch's head. How horrid! Disgusting, my grandmother said. If she's bald, she'll be easy to spot, I said. Not at all, my grandmother said. A real witch always wears a wig to hide her baldness. She wears a first-class wig, and it is almost impossible to tell a really first-class wig from ordinary hair unless you give it
a first-class wig from ordinary hair?
Yeah.
Unless what?
Unless you give it a pull and see if it comes off. Then that's what I'll have to do, I said. Don't be foolish, my grandmother said. You can't go around pulling at hair of every lady you meet, even if she is wearing gloves. Just try it and see what happens.
Sounds dangerous, doesn't it? Just try it and what?
And see what happens. So that doesn't help much either, I said. None of these things is any good on its own, my grandmother said. It's only when you put them all together that they begin to make a little sense. Mind you, my grandmother went on, these wigs do cause a rather serious problem for witches. What problem, Grandmama? They make the scallop itch most terribly, she said. You see, when an actress wears a wig, or if you or I wear a wig, we would be putting it over our own hair. But when a witch puts it straight on her neck scalp, and the underneath of the wig is always very rough and scratchy. It sets up a frightful itch on the bald skin. It causes nasty sources on the head. Sores on the head. wheatgrass, the witches call it, and it doesn't have it, and it doesn't have it.
Doesn't what? Doesn't
And it doesn't have it.
half itch. Doesn't half itch? Why don't we take a little break here for a second, okay?
Good idea.
Wait a second. Okay.
What other things must they look for to recognize a witch? I asked. Look for little nose holes, my grandmother said. Witches have slightly large nose holes.
Than ordinary people.
Than ordinary people. The rim of each nose hole is pink and curvy, like the rim of a certain kind of seashell. What do they have?
Why?
Why do they have such big nose holes? I asked. For smelling with, my grandmother said. A real witch has the most amazing powers of smell. She can actually smell a child who is standing on the other side of the street on a pitch black night. She could smell me.
She couldn't.
She couldn't smell me, I said. I've just had a bath. Oh, yes, she could, my grandmother said. The cleaner you happen to be, the more smelly you get to...
You are
to a witch.
Okay.
Okay. That can't be true, I said. An absolutely clean child gives off the most ghastly stench to a witch.
Stench
To a witch. My grandmother said the dirtier you are, the less you smell. But that doesn't make sense, Grandmama. Oh, yes, it does, my grandmother said. It isn't the dirt that the witches smell, it's you. The smell that drives a witch mad actually comes right out of your own skin. It comes oozing out of your skin in waves, and these waves, stink waves, the witch all call them, go floating through the air and send her reeling. Now wait a minute, Grandmama. Don't interrupt, she said. The point is that when you haven't washed for a week and your skin is covered with dirt, then quite out nearly so strongly. I shall never have a bath again, I said. I just don't have one too often, my grandmother said. Just don't have fun too often, my grandmother said. Once a month is quite enough for a sensible child. It was the moments like these. I loved my grandmother more than ever. Grandmama, I said, if it's a dark night, how can a witch smell the difference between a child and a grown-up? Because grown-ups don't have stink waves, she said. Only children do that. But I don't...
Grown-ups don't have stink waves?
Stink waves, yeah.
Stink waves.
But I don't really give out stink waves, do I? I said, Okay. I'm not giving them out at this very moment, am I? Not to me, you aren't, my grandmother said. To me, you are smelling like raspberries and cream, but to a witch, you would be smelling absolutely disgusting. What would I be smelling of? I asked. Dogs dripping, my grandmother said.
Drooping. Dropping.
Dropping, my grandmother said.
Oof.
My grandmother. I reeled. I was stunned. Dogs dripping? I cried. I'm not smelling of dogs dripping. I don't believe it. I won't believe it. What's more, my grandmother said, speaking with a touch of relief to a witch, you'd be smelling of fresh dogs dripping. That simply is not true, I cried. I know I'm not smelling of dog dripping, stale or fresh. There is no point in arguing about it, my grandmother said. It's a fact of life. I was outraged. I simply couldn't bring myself to believe what my grandmother was telling me. So if a woman holds her nose, as she passes you in the streets, she went on that woman. So if you see a woman holding her nose as she passes you in the street, she went on, that woman could easily be a witch.
Take a break.
Tell me what else to look for in a witch. I said. The eyes, my grandmother said. Look carefully at the eyes, because the eyes of a real witch are different from yours and mine. Look in the middle of each eye where there is normally a little black dot. If she's a witch, the black dot will keep changing color, and you will see fire, and you will see ice dancing right in the very center of the colored dot. It will send shivers running all over your skin. My grandmother leant back in her chair and sucked away contentedly on her foul black cigar. I squinted on the floor, staring on the floor. Squatted on the floor, staring up at her. Fancied she was not smiling. She looked deadly serious.
Huh. She looked deadly serious. Okay. Turn the page. Okay.
Are there other things? I asked. Of course there. Of course.
Start again.
Okay. Are there other things? I asked. Of course there are other things, my grandmother said. You don't seem to understand that witches are not actually women at all. They look like women, they talk like women, and they are able to act like women, but in actual fact, they are totally different animals. Their demands in human shape. That is why they have claws and bald heads and queer noses and peculiar eyes, all of which they have to conceal as best they can from the rest of the world. What else is different about them, Grandmama? The feet, she said. Witches never have toes. No toes? I cried. Then what do they have? They just have feet. My grandmother said the feet have square ends with no toes on them at all. Does that make it difficult to walk? I asked. Not at all, my grandmother said, but it does give them a problem with their shoes. All ladies like to wear small, rather pointed shoes, but a witch whose feet are very wide and square at the ends have the most awful job squeezing their feet into the neat little pointed shoes. Why doesn't she wear wide, comfy shoes with square ends?
You got a crumb in your mouth. On the other side. Get it? Wipe it. It's better. Okay, start with why doesn't she?
Why doesn't she wear wide, comfy shoes with square ends? I asked. She dare not, my grandmother said, as she hides her baldness with a wig. She must also hide her ugly witch's feet by squeezing them into pretty shoes. Isn't that uncomfortable? I said. Extremely uncomfortable, my grandmother said. But she has to put up with it. If she's wearing ordinary shoes, it wouldn't help me recognize her, will it, Grandmama? I'm afraid it won't, my grandmother said. You might possibly see her limping very slightly, but only if you were watching closely. Are those the only difference then, Grandmama? There's one more, my grandmother said. As just one more. What is it, Grandmama? Their spit is blue. Blue, I cried. Not blue. Their spit can't be blue. Blue as bilberry. I say bilberry.
Blue as a blueberry.
No,
Beetleberry?
B-I-L-B-E-E. No, B-I-L berry.
B-I-L berry? A bilberry?
Maybe another name for blueberry. She said, you don't mean it, Grandmama. Nobody can have blue spit. What witches can, she said. It is Is it like ink? I asked. Exactly, she said. They even use it to write with. They use those old-fashioned pens that have nibs, and they simply lick the nib. Can you notice the blue spit, Grandmama? If a witch was talking to me, would I be able to notice it? Only if you look carefully, my grandmother said. If you look very carefully, you would.
Oh. What? Oh.
If you look very carefully, you would probably see a slight bluish tinge on her teeth, but it doesn't show much. It would if she spat, I said. Witches never spit, my grandmother said. They daren't. I couldn't believe my grandmother would be lying to me. She went to church every morning of the week, and she said grace before every meal, and somebody who did that would never tell lies. I was beginning to believe every word she spoke. So there you are, my grandmother said. That's about all I can tell you. None of that is none of it is very helpful. You can still never be absolutely sure when a woman is a witch or not, just by looking at her. But if she is wearing the gloves, if she has the large nose, the queer eyes, and the hair that looks as though it might be a wig, and if she has bluish tinge on her teeth, if she has all these things, then you run like mad. Grandmama, I said, when you were a little girl, did you ever meet a witch? Once, my grandmother said. Only once. What happened? I'm not going to tell you. She said it would be frightening you out of your skin and give you bad dreams. Please tell me, I beg. No, she said. Certain things are too horrible to talk about. Does it have something to do with your missing thumb? I said. Suddenly her old wrinkled lips shut tight as a pair of tongs.
Her lips became as tight as a...
Her lips shut tight as a pair of Tongs.
Tongs.
Tongs. And the hand that held the cigar, which had no thumb on it, began to quiver very silently. I waited. She didn't talk to me. She didn't speak. She didn't speak. All of a sudden, she shut herself off completely. The conversation was finished. Good night, Grandmama, I said, rising from the floor and kissing her on the cheek. She didn't move. I crept up I crept out of the room and went to my bedroom.
That's the end? Good.